Mucker Founders. This is Tony Yang. I run the growth practice here, as most of you guys know. And today I have invited Shaun Merritt, who's co-founder of Karrot.ai. I wanted to spend time with Shaun today because he has a really interesting story. I know you're working with Eric Sue at Single Grain, but you essentially have been building this yourself, building Karrot using AI. So Shaun, thanks for taking time to chat with me. Why don't you kind of give a quick intro about yourself?
I'm Shaun, co-founder, CTO at Karrot. And just a quick intro on Karrot. Karrot's LinkedIn ABM tool that makes account-based marketing easy, helping companies set up ads, campaigns, and understanding all of the metrics that go along with the companies that you're targeting. And some background on me, I started programming when I was 13. I got my first laptop then, and the iPhone App Store had just come out. And I just remember thinking, wow, that's so cool. There were games on my phone or on iPods. I had an iPod Touch at that point, and I was like, man, I want to figure out how to make that work and how to do that. And so I started programming when I was 13 and basically like hacked my way together to create like the first iPhone app that I made. I called it this app called iSing. My stepmom's a singer, and basically all it did was you would sing to your iPod or iPhone, and it would tell you if you're good or not, but it was totally random. It was basically like a random number generator under the hood. And this app took me like 6 months to make, and it's only 3 screens. And now with AI, you could honestly build it in 10 minutes, but 6 months. And I then spent the next few years in middle school and high school basically taking that app and duplicating it, but for different things. So I made a fortune cookie app that you would tap and it would give you a random fortune. And then another app that was like, where do you want to eat? It just helps you figure out, oh, I'm hungry, but I don't know what I want to eat. So it gives you a random food. And they started getting progressively more and more complicated. One of the funny stories, and I think it ties into AI usage as well, is it wasn't until my 5th app that I actually knew what a function was. And that's like a fundamental building block of programming is you wrap your code in functions that are kind of reusable components. And I think I was just so focused on, I want to create a product that I was doing everything I possibly could to do that, but not necessarily getting really good at the programming side. And then eventually I realized, all right, well, now I'm starting to understand what I'm doing. I joined a really early stage company called Pray.com while I was still in high school. I did my senior year of high school working for them and building their iPhone app. And the team there is just incredible, really, really good people. I was deciding between that or college. And the CEO, Steve, he said, well, I basically asked him, hey, if I do this, it's going to be an exchange of college. Can I count on you to learn how to run a business and how to grow a business? And he fulfilled on that offer over 100%. Incredible mentor, got to build that company, got to see them raise money, build a team, build a product, have a really impactful mission. And then after that, started my own company with a couple of friends. We raised money, we built everything. This was before AI, like ChatGPT type AI, and scaled that company, built a big engineering team, product team, and eventually sold that technology. We shut it down. We couldn't really figure out how to make it into a real business at the end of the day, but really wonderful product that people loved. And then now I've been focused on building Karrot with Eric.
Let me get this straight. So you started as a teenager or preteen building iPhone apps, and then in your senior year of high school, you joined a startup and started to build an application with them. And in lieu of going to college or university, you decided to go full-time, get real-world experience building software. And so when we talked offline in another session, you mentioned you joined another startup called Toucan, where you were managing a team of engineers. Tell me how that experience was, because you coming from a background that was not a traditional path into engineering, you didn't go and get a CS degree somewhere, and now you're managing, I think you were still quite young or early in your career at that time. And I remember you telling me from my notes that you were running this engineering team of about 25 engineers, right? So how is that experience like?
Yeah, it was wild. So after Prey, I always knew that I wanted to start a company, and I was, from the get-go, like Steve, the CEO at Prey, I was like, hey, I want to learn how to do this.
Yeah, and Prey is PR, like praying, right? Not not PREY.
Yeah, PRAY.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and I always knew that I wanted to start a company, and actually a couple of my friends, they had the original idea for Toucan. And Toucan was a browser extension that helped people learn languages. So you just install it, and then anywhere you go online, it translates words into the language that you're trying to learn.
Great.
And we started that together. So there are three of us. And I was focused on the technical side. And I think when you're just starting a company, code quality is honestly not that important. Like, you're trying to get to understand, like, do you have a real product? Like, do you have a real business? And I think that early, especially, it's, do you have a product that people like and enjoy and continue to use, and you can get people to? And so when we first started it, it was really just me on the engineering side. One of my other co-founders was on the product side. So he was coming up with what should we build? And then I was working on implementing it and building it. And even that company, pre-AI, we shipped our first version to the store in like less than 2 weeks. And so just to give an example of kind of like how long that stuff really takes to get going. From there, though, you do need a team. Like, I hit my limits very quickly on what I can build. So we raised money. That enabled us to bring on really talented engineers. And my pitch to them was always, hey, this is your opportunity to work at a place where I truly respect your engineering capability, and I can tell you what we need to build, and you can go build it the way that you want to build it. And I'll have questions. Like, my main thing is I just want to keep it simple. Like, even I should be able to understand everything that you're doing. But that worked really well. And, eventually the team became about 50, 20 to 25 on the product design side, engineering side. And it was a really incredible experience. And they all built some incredible technology.
Were these engineers that joined Toucan at the time under you, were they fresh out of college? Were they, or a few years of experience, or did they also include more senior, more experienced engineers?
Yeah, our first engineer was an incredibly senior engineer, and he was actually on contract originally.
Okay.
He helped kind of, like, the first version of Toucan that I made was very, very poor quality code. And he helped kind of bring that up and basically make the development experience a little bit better.
Yeah.
Because what I was worried about was bringing on all of these talented engineers and having them come into my code base and it just being so bad that they're really slow and they're spending a bunch of time kind of like working in that system rather than thinking about how to make it better. So I wanted to bring someone in that was really experienced, that could help get it to a solid place to where like the development experience was all taken care of. And then we could bring in more engineers that are more focused on product building rather than the development experience side.
Yeah.
So he helped us get there. And then from there, it was really a mix all over the place. So we had, I'd say, probably mid-level to senior engineers join the first batch of engineers that we hired. We hired 3 people at the start. So senior engineer, probably like mid-level engineer, and then a junior engineer. And those were the 3 that kind of got us started.
Yeah. And how long did you work at Toucan for?
Yeah, so we were working on it for, I'd say, about 5 years.
5 years? Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. And then you went on from Toucan and started to get connected with Eric Su at Single Grain, and the idea of Karrot came about. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So after Toucan, I was really trying to figure out what to do next. And I had this thesis. AI had just started to become, I'd say, like, you could just start using it to kind of build complex apps right at the end of Toucan for me. That's kind of like the timeline that it was happening in.
Okay.
And I had this theory that I still really truly believe in, that building stuff is just going to get easier and easier to do. And therefore, people are going to make more and more apps, and it's going to become harder and harder to get customers for those apps. Because if you have too much competition there, paid ads are going to get more expensive. Existing channels are going to get more polluted. Like, there's just going to be a lot of noise. And I had this theory of, I want to partner with someone who's really good at marketing and really good at sales, because I think that that's actually going to be really hard now moving forward.
Yeah.
And I know for me, on the technical side, me plus AI, like, we can go very far together in a weird way.
Yeah.
But I will hit a wall with marketing. And so that's where Eric came in. Eric was actually an investor in Toucan. And so that's how we knew each other. We started talking about some sort of partnership. We didn't even know what it was going to be. We had no idea of product, nothing. But we just kind of stayed close. And he did a really good job of like keeping in touch. And like, I think he had wanted to build something for a while. And I've always been impressed with like his podcast and all the stuff that he does on marketing.
Yeah.
And once we decided to make things a little bit more formal, I'd say one of the benefits of his existing company, Single Grain, is that have really great clients, and they have a wonderful team that's supporting those clients through services. So paid media services, search services, all of those. And through that, what we started to realize is some of those customers had requests that you need custom software to fulfill.
Okay.
And so we started talking with some of the customers. One of them approached us and was like, hey, we'd like to run essentially personalized ads to all of these target companies that we have. So they had a list of like, I don't know, I think it was 50 or something target companies.
Yep.
And they said, if we land any of these as deals or even meetings, it's a really big deal for us because they're enterprise clients. Like this is a B2B business. And they have a workflow to create all of these personalized ads in LinkedIn, but it was going to take forever. And so I was like, hey, well, there's probably other people that have this same need. What if we build software and actually test this on you guys and offer it to other people as well? And they said that that was totally cool. So that was the first version of Karrot, was basically I'd say like admin portal for me to launch those campaigns for them. So I created a very bare bones version where I could upload this target account list that they sent me. And they sent me a creative that they wanted to use with like basically variables of what they wanted swapped out for each company. And then I took that, built this like admin dashboard, admin kind of page, and was able to create through LinkedIn's API these ads in their ad account. And then we let it run for a little bit, see how it performed, realized, hey, this is getting, I think in their case, it was about 100% increase in engagement and about a 50% reduction in cost per click. And once we realized that, it was like, wow, this can really work for other customers too. So we started building it out from there.
So for those of you guys who are listening, don't want you guys to miss this. Obviously in LinkedIn, if you have run any sort of advertising on LinkedIn, you can target specific accounts and companies and people with certain job titles and departments. But what Shaun is referring to with the Karrot product is to be able to run personalized or customized ads for each of these companies that you can run from a company perspective, one-to-one type of ads with very specific messaging, right?
Yes.
So for any of you who are taking account-based strategy, go-to-market strategy, and have experience with LinkedIn, if you guys are a market report co, definitely check out Karrot's product. We have a special agreement with Shaun and Eric, so thanks for that, Shaun. Go into the founder portal and take a look and test things out. But yeah, let's see what the early version of it looked like, Shaun.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I'll share the V0, but what's interesting is I've used it as a base. So you'll see it's actually like quite mature now. It's still not the product, of course, but what I did for the very first version was there's this tool called V0, which I'll share my screen and show you. It's really good at building essentially landing pages is what it's meant for, but I use it to build like a full kind of like test product where I'm able to come in and say what I want to change and all of that. So the very first version of Karrot was that. It was basically me building this stuff and asking the customer, hey, does this look good? Does this look like something that you would use? So I'll go ahead and share my screen and show you what this looks like. All right, so within V0, I have a project that is essentially Karrot. So actually, let me show you what this looks like in practice real quick. So this is the real product. This is all demo data, but the main thing that's going on here is you have an activity panel on the right where you can see all of the people that are commenting or reacting on any of your LinkedIn ads at a time. And we enrich that with kind of real data. You can create personalized campaigns. So let me show you what this really looks like in practice. You can open this up and choose some target accounts to go after. So like Apple, Amazon, GitHub. You can upload a CSV, and then you create the personalized ad. So for example, this is an ad that we created for one of our customers. And obviously this is fake copy here as well, but you can see that you can change out any sort of variable here. So up above, like hello, company name, and you can see it gets swapped out with Apple, as well as this image is totally personalizable. We have essentially like a Canva-like editor where you can come in and change stuff. But you can see like all of this is a ton of functionality, and there's even more, right? Like we offer personalized landing pages. We have essentially like pipeline reporting where you can understand all of the targeted companies that you're going after. There's just a lot going on. So to keep things a little bit simpler as I'm building, what I do is I actually work in V0.
What you were just showing us was the actual product in production available today.
Yep.
And you built all of this yourself with the assistance of AI tools over the span of, what was it, 6 months, seven
Yeah.
months, 8 months?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And to get there, right, there's a lot of components of what goes into building. So first you have to decide like, what do you want to build? And then second, you have to decide, all right, how do I build that? Well, I guess before how to build that, you choose the design, right? Like you go from what do I want to build to design it out, actually figure out how you want this to look. And then three, you go, how do I actually build that? And then four, you build it. And then five, you bring it to customers. And six, if it's good, you're testing and making sure that it's maintained and working. And what I've found is actually the choosing what to build and designing it is the hardest part. I'm not a designer. I like to say I have literally zero design skills. It's really hard for me to visualize stuff. I don't know, I didn't get that gene or something. But the way I've been compensating for that with AI is using V0. So what I did, and this is literally the same project I have from the beginning of Karrot. I basically loaded everything in here from the beginning of Karrot. I may have forked it a few times, so that's why you see it's only version 38. This is like version 38 of a fork.
Yep.
But I have essentially a version of Karrot in here that's non-functional, but gives me the ability to prompt stuff for designs. So you can see like early on, I knew that knowing what companies you're going after is important, knowing which ads you're running is important, and
Yeah.
figuring out kind of all of this stuff. Anytime I add a new feature, I use this to mock it out. So like we came out with this influence pipeline feature where you can see essentially what companies you're targeting and how are they converting into your CRM.
Yeah.
All of that stuff is here. But this is what I used to basically figure out, all right, we have this semblance of an idea of a flow that we want to run.
Yeah.
And now I could build it here, design it out, show it to customers, see if it makes sense. And then I spend time building it, which even then I take this into Quad Code and share screenshots as well. Like I'll literally just drag my like screenshot tool over this and then go to Quad Code and say, hey, now integrate this into my code base. And it's really, this has been the hardest part of the process for me is actually figuring out what do I want to build and what does it initially look like.
Okay. So after talking to some customers and well, you talked to this one customer at Single Grain who wanted to run customized ad. You had a basic idea of what kind of product you wanted to build. And so you essentially use V0 to create a essentially a working prototype, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and how long, I guess, well, how long is one of the questions, but would you be able to just kind of briefly describe that process? Was it just you opening up like a blank zero screen and just saying, hey, I think we should have a screen that shows, these cards with these companies, or like what was your thought process behind, starting with zero and then all the way to a working prototype?
Yeah, absolutely. So the very first version of Karrot was literally like an admin dashboard that no one could see but me. So
Okay.
I wasn't even in V0 yet. I was using essentially ChatGPT at the time
Yeah.
was the main one, but
Okay.
I was using that to research and understand how do LinkedIn's APIs work.
Got it.
And then from there, once I built that very first version, then it was, all right, now we got to get this in front of customers. We got to let customers play with this themselves. Because we saw the positive results, right? Like we knew that these types of ads were working.
Yeah.
Now we want to allow people to do it themselves. And that's the hardest part for me is figuring out what does that flow look like? What does it actually look like to go from sign up to create an ad to all of this stuff? And that's where I use this. And it is literally exactly like you described. You open this up, there's nothing here, and then you just start telling it what you want. So one of the features that we have coming out is actually the ability to understand what companies are visiting your website. This is a feature that has been requested by customers. I don't know if it would make sense to show you like how I would go about doing that in here, but
Sure.
I could show you.
Yeah, let's do that.
Cool. All right. So literally just in the same chat, what I'm going to do is say, let's add a new feature that helps businesses understand what companies are visiting their website. And that's like the kind of overall thing that I want to do. But now I want to say, all right, like I said, I'm very bad at the design. but I got to give it some direction. So I'm going to say, all right, I want to, let's add this as a new tab on the sidebar called website activity. And I usually like to take things one step at a time. So what I'll do here now is I'll say, fill that page out with demo data similar to what I have on the company's page. And so I'll just let it do its thing. It's going to go ahead and think about it. And this is kind of the fun part of this is it's going to go ahead and hopefully get it right the first time. But more often than not, it's just a starting place. Like it just allows me to say, does this look good? Does this not? One thing I found to be really helpful as this project has gotten larger is basically every few prompts, like if it does a bunch of work, I'll tell it to refactor itself into smaller files. And what that does is under the hood, it actually creates all of these files that represent the product, right? But if you're not prompting it to create smaller files, it kind of lumps everything into a big file, and then future requests take a long time because it's got to update the whole file. It's not very good at figuring out exactly where to update things just yet.
Got it. Okay. So what's the prompt that you use to ask it to break it up into smaller files?
Yeah, so I'll go into here in the code. So you have the preview and code, and you can see it's writing something here. And we'll see how long this file becomes if I need to do it for this one. I don't think I would, but basically if there's a long file, I just say in here, I say looking at conversions layout.tsx. That's just this file as an example. The file is really long and there's a lot of stuff when it could be broken out more. Please, I don't know if it's weird to say please or not to these models yet, but I'm going on the side of, I think they'll remember.
You're very polite.
Yeah, so please refactor so that in the future, it's faster to update the project. And this prompt, like, I think it's pretty good at figuring out what I mean by this. It's actually pretty quick at figuring out, all right, let's go ahead and separate things out so that when the user asks for a question, it knows where to point to rather than trying to update everything. Cool. Okay. And so it just went ahead and figured out or responded to us from this first one. And so now we have this new website activity tab here. And I mean, yeah, this is already pretty solid. I mean, there's some weird design stuff here, but like this is actually exactly what I'm looking for is like company, salesforce.com is the domain. It's figured out from my other chats with it that I'm really sensitive to, like me as a user using this tool, I'm sensitive to, I want it to make crystal clear sense, like who's qualified versus not. It's remembered that from my previous chats with it. So it's probably gone a little bit overboard here. Like we don't have a concept of lead score just yet, but it's probably anticipating that we need one, which I think is accurate. Pricing, features, so all this stuff makes sense. And yeah, it also remembers from my previous chats that I'm really picky on filters too. So you can see it's added all this stuff in. And I think, yeah, just highlighting like this used to take a lot longer, to be honest, because originally it would have only given me this table. But because I've gone back and forth with it, and this has become my like, this is essentially what I'm using instead of Figma. So it has all the context of everything I've asked for it in the past. And so it's gotten the search bar correct and it's working. It's gotten the export button there, which I like. Filters, it's set that up in the way that I like it as well. So lead score, you can see columns. But let's say, you know, this stuff up here isn't all that helpful. So I'll go back and say, this is a great start, but remove the 4 headers at the top of the website activity page. They're not that useful. And so it's going to go ahead and remove these 4, hopefully. And V0 is also added in this feature recently. I'll show you when it comes back, where you can like select elements and delete them a little bit easier. But if you don't want to mess with code at all, you can literally just prompt everything that you want here.
Yeah.
And it'll do it. But okay. Yeah.
So I imagine when you first started with the initial version, you're writing your prompts. I imagine that you had to prompt it quite a bit more to get it to what you were envisioning it to be. I mean, because you just mentioned with this new feature, it learned from your previous prompts and requests that, hey, you generally like this type of approach or you like these filters, right? So is it just literally you write a prompt, it produces an output, and you type in, well, I actually don't like this, or I like this, or I had something else in mind, and you're just iterating over time using Zero to get to some sort of working prototype.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll show you, like, this is a brand new project from scratch. So if I was starting absolutely from zero, here's like a prompt I would use. So I'm building a B2B SaaS application. And let's just say I want to use the website visitor one as an example, like its own B2B SaaS application, right? That helps companies understand what companies are visiting their website. And again, I'm using the same use case, but this is a brand new project. Like it doesn't have any context of what I've done in that other project.
Yep.
And for design inspiration, please use ShadCN components. So ShadCN is this tool here. It's a bunch of templates built out for design, and the owner of this has made them open source. It's really good. You can customize everything. But what I found is V0 does a really good job of like using those components exclusively. I would like a sidebar that shows, let's say, the user account plus pages. Beneath it, a dashboard that shows what companies are visiting which pages, filters on that list. And so I'll also go ahead and select the larger model here. That just gets a little bit more performance. And then sometimes I'll also actually say, like, give it a little bit more context and almost like role play a little bit. So you are the leading UI UX designer at Airbnb, a company known for incredible design and simplicity. Think about this project in that lens. And it usually takes a little bit of time, like as a brand new project. And I'll do this as new projects as well if I want to actually get out of the system I've set up.
Yeah.
So like if it's adding filters to everything, that's a little bit too much. So I'll start fresh and be able to bring it over. But a prompt like this will get you really far. So you can see it's actually going to think about it. The larger model gives you essentially like more thinking. It's running more of like an agent than it is in the medium or small mode. Yeah. And we're going to try and resolve some of this stuff for you.
Yeah. And so you reference an open source component or library. So I assume that's like a best practice, so to speak, if you could find open source libraries to point V0 to utilize. Is that generally what you would do?
I mean, that's what I would do. I think like this early on, it doesn't really make sense to focus on your design as much because you don't know if you have a product that people are going to enjoy, it's worth getting it out there. So like, this is crazy, right? Like already brand new prompt, like haven't touched this at all. And it's taken our list of like I don't even know, this is like 100 words maybe or something.
Yep.
It's generated this entire thing. And it's all pointing to the same page, but like it's pretty much nailed that. And then what I would do is I'd say, all right, okay, let's just say I want to have like a sidebar detailed view of Stripe when I click on it, or Vercel. So now what I'll do, to your point, is you just keep prompting it. So you say, great job. Again, I'm always very nice to these models.
I mean, it might take over the world if we're
Yeah.
mean.
When I click on a company in the table, open a detail sidebar drawer, find the right component from CN for me that opens on the right side and takes about half of the screen. Fill that with data about the company. Show me a chart that has website visits over time. Use CN charts for that too. And this, now that we're getting more intricate, this may take a little bit of time, but the idea here is that I use V0 to create these. And then this is something Eric is really good at, is always talking to customers. So like just making sure that we're always having conversations, and we do like weekly check-in calls with customers so that I can make sure that they're getting the best results from the product. But what I'll do is on those calls, now I actually open up V0 and show them this. And basically like I can get a sense of reaction of, is this good or is this not good? Is this the right direction, the wrong direction? Is this useful? Is this not useful? And you can really tie it in. Like there's a great book, the Mom Test, for how to run those kind of like discovery calls with customers. Yeah. But like literally each check-in call we do with customers, we're doing a mini version of that, where for existing customers, we're getting a sense of what's helpful versus unhelpful for new features to go and build. So all of the time that I'm saving in building this stuff, I'm actually not necessarily building more than I was before AI, but I'm actually using that new time to go spend with customers more to figure out what to build. So here you go. Like you can see there's some like weird formatting stuff, but overall it did a pretty good job of doing what we asked, right? Like you now click on it and you have this, and this stuff you used to have a designer do. And now as a small team, really good designers are very expensive, like, and they're also the hardest people to replace, like, or to find and hire. Like it's really hard to find someone super skilled at it. And actually at Karrot, we have an incredible designer that's helping us like super part-time, and basically once a month we meet up for like a day and I just show him what I've been doing in here, and he like tweaks it a little bit. He's like, oh, this, we want to make this animation a little bit nicer, or it, and look at that, it fixed itself on the spacing. But yeah, he'll come in and say, this is a good start, but we should have like, when you hover over this, it should do X, Y, and Z, and then I could prompt it here and it either looks good or it doesn't, and he's able to kind of help me go from there.
So I think that's a great segue, because so far we've been talking about, we're looking at it a prototype from the front end perspective. So kind of like two areas I wanted to cover. One is, okay, then what? Like how do you then connect this to like a back end instance and actually get it running? But also to your point about bringing in a human expert on design to supplement what's already pretty good from V0. Like what's that workflow look like with your UX designer? Do you have that person actually go in V0 and do more design focused type of prompts, or do you export it into some sort of Figma file and that person messes around with it? And like what's your process in terms of working with other people, specifically in this instance with UI UX?
Yeah, so this is definitely going to change as we get bigger and bigger, but right now what happens is it's actually so fast for me to go from what's in V0 to working for customers that I focus on that first. So I basically go from V0 once I'm at a solid place and once some customers have looked at it and said, hey, this is going to be helpful, or it's not waste time building it. What I do is I actually take that and then use Cursor and Quad Code to build it. And so I don't have a real thing to show you on that, but essentially what I do is I take a screenshot of the page that I want to build from V0. And I paste it into Quad Code inside of Cursor.
Yeah.
And I turn it to plan mode. So Quad Code has like a few different modes. I turn it to planning mode. And what that does is it actually focuses on understanding first rather than going and making changes to my code. So I say, this is a new feature that I want to build, create a project plan for me. And I give it a screenshot. I also then will actually take some of the code, like within V0, there's that like preview button and then code button.
Yeah.
So I just copy and paste the code into the chat. And I say, build me a project plan given all of this, and ask me questions before you get started. And then it usually thinks about it for a few minutes, follows up with a question or two. I give it an answer and give it some direction. And then it creates a plan that I'm able to review. And I say, this is good or this is not good. And then I let it get started. And it usually gets to like 60, 70% of the way there. And then you just got to go in and, similar to what we were doing in V0, you kind of prompt it and help it get there. But then at a certain point, it reaches, all right, I'm just going to go into the code and edit it myself.
Yeah.
So that's where I still think this stuff is incredible for letting engineers focus on higher level stuff, but you still got to have at least the like mental attitude of, I'm just going to fix it. Like I got to make it work at the end of the day. So once it's there, then it's working. We have customers play with it. If it actually gets used, then that's when I talk to the designer about it.
Okay.
Because I only want his time focused on basically like what I know is going to be useful to customers. Because I only get 1 day a month with him, you know?
Yeah.
And that may be different. As we get bigger, we're going to bring more people in. But I really want his time to be focused on the absolute highest leverage stuff, because it's a human. Like both my time and his time, we got to focus on stuff that's going to be useful.
Yeah. And so what does that part look like? Does he actually recreate that design in change the functionality in a Figma file, and then?
Yeah. So we meet up in person, and I basically walk him through how people are using it in practice.
Yeah.
And we screenshot every page. So we have the V0, which it always looks a little bit different than V0. Like I'm not trying to get it pixel perfect to the V0. I'm just using it as the flow.
Sure.
V0, we look at that. Then we look at, all right, what is this in practice? What does this look like as a user going through it?
Yeah.
And we screenshot all of those, bring them into Figma. And then he honestly just like plays around in the Figma and starts playing with stuff. And then what we do is from there, it's honestly when we're in the same room, he'll make a change. And then I'll just prompt Quad Code to make the same change in my actual code base. So we honestly almost skip V0. And that's why the V0 looks kind of different than the product itself.
Right.
Is because V0 doesn't have any of the nice design polish that he adds to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a starting point for you to quickly build like a working prototype, essentially.
Yeah, and even, you know, the design polish, like not to minimize good design, like it's really important, but you do need to make sure that the thing you're building is landing with customers first.
Yeah.
And V0 definitely gets you there. And then I'd say what he adds is really a level of polish that makes it more professional and can service more customers on its own without me needing to get involved to kind of like support, here's how you do this and this.
Yeah. So regarding Cursor and Quad Code, so was there any particular reason why you decided to go with those tools as opposed to like Replit or Retool or, you know, any number of these other, you know, live coding tools out there?
Yeah, I think just Cursor specifically. So it actually became, Cursor was like the first tool I adopted for AI coding. And this stuff is just moving so fast that I'll say like Cursor is really, really, really good.
Yeah.
And then Quad Code just makes it even better. And so those tools specifically, the reason I chose them over like a Replit or something, I think that those are great as well. But for me, I've still found that this stuff gets it like 60, 70, 80% of the way there.
Yeah.
And then I still need to come in and make some edits. So maybe one day it gets 100% of the way there.
Yeah.
But until then, for me, I still need to be able to go in and make changes really quickly and targeted changes. And the way to do that for me is with a code editor.
Got it. Okay. So kind of thinking about Karrot's future, and I guess we'll wrap up soon about, you know, like first about Karrot's future and almost like what you would do differently with AI at your disposal now. Are you thinking about that? Are you thinking that you would just continue building as a solo builder using AI, or at some point do you feel like it's it will warrant where you hire, a smaller team of people? And how do you envision, integrating a team with these AI tools? Are you thinking about things like, checking in code into a repo somewhere from, quad code and cursor, and then having like, what would be your thought process around that?
Yeah, absolutely. So like we've already started on hiring. And so now that we validated that, hey, there's a need for this product in the market, people are using it, they're getting value from it. Now it's all about, all right, how do we make sure that we can deliver that as fast as possible and in the best way possible?
Yeah.
So we're starting to bring on engineers. We just brought on our first one, like literally a week or so ago. And the way that we're focused on integrating them is they got to use AI. Like there's just not an option to not, to be honest. When you're working in a code base, like it's basically every engineer's dream is to come into a code base and completely rewrite it from the ground up, even if it's really good, because reading code is way harder than writing code. No matter how good that code is. Like it is always so hard to come into a project and understand what's going on. So the first instinct always is to rewrite. That ends up being like a really bad decision as a business because most of the time the code is already good enough and will help and will get you to the next place that you need to be. So first off, they're using it to understand the code base, like not even make changes, but just understand what's going on, understand the structure. And I think that they'll be more like architects. And I'd say that's the thing that you can't give over to AI completely just yet is architecting a solution. So you have this feature, you want to build it. We designed it out in V0, looks great. But if it's a more complex thing, I still need to just decide, all right, we want this, like these are all the parts of it. And I think that's what an engineer's job is going to be, is to kind of architect it. And then, we will use GitHub to kind of like, and we do like check in code and make sure it's good and merge it in if it passes security checks and everything.
Yeah.
And I think that honestly, as well as becoming an architect, engineers are going to need to be way more QA focused as well. Is like, if you're having AI write a lot of your code, you do need to check the code, of course, and you need to prompt it, but you got to be like really involved in checking the quality and making sure that it's the product that you want to build. And then undecided yet is whose responsibility is it for the product, right? Is it, because that is actually now becoming the hardest thing, is deciding what to build and what is worth building. And then what does that flow look like is now actually the hardest part of the whole thing. It's almost inverse. 5 years ago, it was, hey, like engineers are flooded with specs and you're waiting like months and months for them to be able to free up enough resources to hit a spec. But now it's actually engineers are like, they're running through specs so fast that you need like a massive backlog because it's just super hard to get that part of it done by AI.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome. Last question. Anything you would do differently given now that you've built Karrot to where it is now? If you were to restart or start over, anything you would do differently?
I'd say spend even more time talking to customers and less time building.
Okay.
I think it really is all about getting in front of customers and having these conversations. And I think as an engineer, I've kind of come to the consideration or to the realization that like AI, I think will be a better engineer than me, or maybe that it's going to be like a faster engineer, but something like giving up control of writing all the code, like I've given that up, and that's actually been good. And the main thing that's gotten me is more time to talk to customers. But at first, I would say I was using that time to build more features. And so I wish, from the very beginning, that instead of using that time that it gave me to just build more stuff, I actually spent it talking to customers, which is what we've been doing for the past 5-6 months or so.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Thanks for sharing your story with us, Shaun. And I am interested in seeing how you guys continue to develop Karrot, just because I know several of our portfolio companies follow an account-based marketing strategy. So I would not be surprised if some of them start to sign up for a Karrot account. But hey, thanks for kind of opening up the hood and showing me how you build things. And hopefully this is would be a good source of inspiration for some of our founders who are, kind of thinking along the lines of, should I hire more engineers to build product? This is a great alternative to build something fast, even if they're just one person like yourself. So thank you so much for sharing that story with us.
Awesome. Thanks. See ya.
Thanks. Bye.